So you're all very welcome here this afternoon. My name is Orla. I'm President of Engineers Ireland, and I'd like to officially welcome you all and wish you a happy World Engineering Day for Sustainable Development. So to mark the day, we've an excellent panel of speakers who are going to be discussing engineering and sustainability. Just a few housekeeping arrangements. The event will last for no more than 1 hour, and we will have some time for questions and answers at the end. So please do enter your questions using the Q&A facility on Zoom. And just also please be aware that the event will be recorded and will be posted to our website. So then today, the 4th of March, is the 3rd annual World Engineering Day. This is a UNESCO International Day to highlight the achievements of engineers and to improve public understanding of how engineering and technology are central to modern life and in particular to sustainable development. The day is an opportunity to increase the profile of engineering as a career, highlighting how the profession can change the world for the better. Again, we're all very familiar with that in all our various activities of engineering. And the events on the day can be used to engage governments, industry and the public on the importance of engineers and of engineering in creating and delivering solutions for sustainable development. You'll see on the screen the World Engineering Day logo, which includes the 17 colours of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, placing at the centre the goals for water, energy, sustainable infrastructure and innovation. So in other words, some of the goals where engineering will be needed most. You see the image of the world incorporated in the logo, along with the gear, which symbolises engineers driving the world towards sustainable development. So World Engineering Day then is spearheaded by the World Federation of Engineering Organisations. The WFEO is an international organisation for the engineering profession, representing more than 30 million engineers worldwide. And we will now play a video message from Professor Gong Key, the president of the WFEO.
Dear colleagues and friends, the 3rd World Engineering Day, March 4th, is coming right up. WFEO has proposed to establish such a World Engineering Day for celebrating engineering achievements and mobilizing engineers across the world to accelerate the actions of implementing the SDGs. This proposal was officially adopted by UNESCO in 2019. In spite of the pandemic, the World Engineering Day has been celebrated by engineering organizations, academies, industrial companies, civil societies, as well as governments, with strong support by United Nations bodies. Especially at last year's World Engineering Day, we have witnessed the launch of the 2nd UNESCO Engineering Report, which is a milestone report in the global development of engineering. Over 2 years into the COVID-19 pandemic, we have witnessed the engineering approaches and the key technologies help to combat against COVID-19, as well as in maintaining productions and services. In the meanwhile, we strongly realize that the world should build back better and wiser to accelerate the transformation to a sustainable future, in which engineers have a crucial role to play. This is why the theme of this year's World Engineering Day is set as Build Back Wiser, Engineering the Future. To build back wiser, the foremost consideration is to leveraging science, technology, and engineering in a more open, innovative, and responsible way. For all engineering practitioners, it is required to better master the necessary knowledge and skills for promoting sustainable development, especially to make use of digital technologies such as big data, artificial intelligence, and the Internet of Things to meet the pressing global challenges, such as the code red alarm of climate change, increasing natural and man-made disasters, and different forms of inequalities. In particular, we need to engage with more young people, women and girls, so that they are fully motivated to be part of this innovative profession. We started this year's celebration with the World Engineering Day Hackathon. More than 120 student teams from 24 countries participated in these global competitions. They have submitted various innovative engineering solutions to real-world problems. It is exciting to see so many young people engage themselves in an attempt to develop enabling engineering for sustainable development goals. To build back wiser, the global partnership and collaboration of engineering, industry, and governments are of paramount importance. On March 4th, we will host a 24-hour global live broadcast to celebrate this festival moment, to showcase excellent engineering practices in implementing SDGs in different parts of the globe, to provide opportunities for all stakeholders to exchange their experiences and ideas, to learn from each other, and to cooperate with each other. We welcome the international community to celebrate the World Engineering Day with us together and to leverage the systematic wisdom of science, technology, and engineering to work collectively for Build Back Wiser and to shape a more sustainable future of the humankind and the Earth.
So I think that video portrayed the motivation behind the day very well, but both the challenges, but also the optimism around the role that engineering can play. Now, of course, when the video and indeed the day were devised, you know, the COVID pandemic there you heard mentioned, we could not have known that we would be now in this plunged into this terrible dark period now for Europe and for the world with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So given the broad array of challenges around us in the world, sometimes things can feel very, very dark. But we as engineers look for solutions. And I think that message of building back wiser in the context of sustainability is a really great message. And we in Engineers Ireland are very proud to be associated with that message. For us as an organisation, this is our third time marking World Engineering Day for Sustainable Development. On this day in 2020, following a motion passed by our council, my predecessor, Marguerite Sayers, declared on behalf of the organisation a climate and biodiversity emergency. This declaration recognised that climate breakdown and biodiversity collapse are the most serious issues of our time and that transformational action is required. Since then, we have strongly embedded sustainability into our organisational strategy, including in our vision. Engineers Ireland is a community of creative professionals delivering sustainable solutions for society. So to put this strategic commitment into action, we developed a sustainability framework based on our four pillars that I think resonate very well with people. Those pillars are how we learn, how we live as a profession, as an organisation, how we lead, and how we link with others with a role to play in this challenge. So our regional branches, our engineering divisions and societies have been instrumental and really have brought this framework to life, organising activities such as the very successful Sustainability Grand Tour. Now, earlier this year, a group from Engineers Ireland's Council and Executive Board reviewed that sustainability framework and the progress made in 2020 and 2021 and developed an updated sustainability plan with actions for 2022 and 2023. And this was unanimously approved by the Council of Engineers Ireland on the 5th of February. I'd like to thank those involved in this work, Laura Burke, Conal Boland, Barry Cullen and Magdalena Hajdukiewicz. And I'm now going to hand over to Richard Manton, who's going to present, who is also, by the way, very much involved in this activity. And Richard will present the sustainability plan for Engineers Ireland for 2022-2023.
Thank you very much, President. Before I go through the plan in some detail, I'd just like to give a little bit of background. So Orla mentioned there the declaration of a climate and biodiversity emergency on this day 2 years ago, so the first World Engineering Day for Sustainable Development. This work has very much framed our sustainability actions in the 2 years since. For example, it established our commitment in this area, pointed towards our action, and then very much emphasized the importance of collaboration in this area. At that time, we also did quite a bit of engagement with our membership and with the broader public in terms of trying to understand the role and the importance of engineers in taking climate action. So for example, we asked our engineering members and members of the public whether engineers have an ethical responsibility to tackle climate change and biodiversity loss. And the response came back with a very strong yes. And you'll see there that across engineers, the public, and even then when we broke this down by gender, by discipline, by number of years qualified and other demographics, we really found that it was right across the board that there is the agreement that engineers do have an ethical responsibility in this area. You'll find more information on that and other aspects of sustainability in our 2020 barometer report. And at this point, would just like to plug our 2022 report, which will be published on Monday, will also include a section on sustainability. Orla then also mentioned our first sustainability framework, which was published in mid-2020, approved by our council. That framework built on learn, live, lead and link, I think has been quite successful. It included 16 actions that we've implemented over the last 18 months. And before I go into the successor plan, I'd just like to give a few highlights from the work that we've completed over the past year alone. Firstly, we amended our accreditation criteria so that we can really ensure that sustainability is embedded right throughout engineering programs at higher education, including a program outcome on professional and ethical responsibilities. Orla also referenced the very successful Sustainability Grand Tour, which garnered thousands of attendees over the course of 2021 and was really a collaboration right across the regions, divisions and societies of Engineers Ireland. We also undertook an energy audit of our building at 22 Clyde Road, which then developed a series of recommendations about reducing our carbon footprint as an organisation. Our STEPS programme also entered a partnership with the EPA, as well as embedding sustainability throughout the STEPS projects. We published a series of reports and policy papers, such as the State of Ireland 2020 on engineering a green and digital future, as well as an issues paper on protecting biodiversity, the role of engineers. We held 2 national conferences on climate action, including one where there was a fantastic address by the President of Ireland, Michael D. Higgins. And then, of course, we had many collaborative events. Unfortunately, most were online, given the time that was in it. But really, I think some fantastic events that showed the collaboration across not only engineering, but also our sister organizations across the world, as well as other professional bodies and civil society organizations in Ireland. So just looking at 2021, we had 159 events related to sustainability with over 13,000 attendees. There are 226 articles in the Engineers Journal related to sustainability, and we had 60 press or policy statements. I think really this shows the extent of the sustainability work by Engineers Ireland and really the level of enthusiasm by our members to see us be a leader in this area. So reviewing this level of activity, Orla mentioned that there was a subgroup of our council and executive board which followed a strategy away day. And again, I'd like to thank Laura, Connell, Barry and Magda for their input on that group. We also had a cross-organisational staff group taken from the teams across Engineers Ireland, and together we developed the sustainability plan for 2022-2023, again with input from our council, our senior management team, and from the staff in Engineers Ireland. I'm glad to say that was approved unanimously by the Council of Engineers Ireland on the 5th of February. So I'll now take you through the sustainability plan. As Orla mentioned, this is based on the Learn, Live, Lead, Link framework, which really I think has resonated across the engineering profession. So in Learn, we're committed to embedding sustainability right throughout engineering education, from primary school through higher education and into lifelong learning through our CPD program. We're also committed to living sustainability, including reducing the carbon footprint of the Clyde Road and as an institution as a whole, and embracing new technologies to drive sustainability and inclusion. In terms of leading, we will co-design the role of the engineer in delivering sustainability solutions, and that will commit to these in our professional titles regulations and our other policies. And then finally, we will link on sustainability in that we will educate, communicate, and campaign on sustainability in collaboration with scientists, environmentalists, government, and other professions. And again, that was highlighted in the declaration that we made 2 years ago. So I'll now briefly run through each of the 4 sections and some of the 20 actions that are listed for delivery in the next 2 years. So in the Learn section, we will build on the work that was done under the last sustainability framework by embedding sustainability in 3rd level engineering programs in fulfillment of our new accreditation criteria. We will also continue to expand our CPD training programs, which are aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, so that we can drive upskilling related to sustainability. Then specifically, we will develop a multi-module CPD program, which will provide essential environmental engineering upskilling, drawing on best practice and case studies. We will also highlight these national and international case studies through the very important work done by our regional branches, engineering divisions and societies, including some of our new and relaunched sectors. So those being, for example, our Water and Environmental Society, our Inclusion and Diversity Society, and others. And then we will also further embed sustainability in the STEPS portfolio of projects, including, of course, Engineers Week, which kicks off tomorrow. In the Live section, as I said, we're committed to operating more sustainability as an organisation. So we're going to establish the carbon footprint of Engineers Ireland's operations in areas such as water, waste, travel, energy and biodiversity, and then establish targets and of course to reduce our carbon footprint. We're also going to look at the potential to become a living lab by collaborating with some research projects. The energy audit that I mentioned that was carried out last year, we will be implementing those recommendations then to reduce our energy consumption and improve our energy efficiency. We will also evolve our sustainable events policy as of course our event formats evolve now in the post-COVID period. And we're also going to review our travel policies so that we can support sustainable travel. We will introduce then a remote working policy in line with the legislation currently being developed by government, again, to embrace some of the sustainability benefits of remote working. We will also then continue to expand our member services, our events, meetings and training, which are available online, really to ensure that there's an inclusive and sustainable operating model for these events. And then finally, in this section, we're going to look at our digital footprint, for then reducing our digital footprint with the benefits that that brings for carbon footprint reduction. In the lead section, we're going to develop a shared vision for the critical role of engineers and Engineers Ireland in delivering urgent sustainable solutions to the climate and biodiversity emergency and the achievement of the SDGs. Then based on this vision, we're going to establish a members' declaration or a commitment, really ensuring that there's very strong engagement and communication in the development of these visions and declarations. And I know we're going to hear a bit from David McHugh a bit later on some similar work done by the ACEI with whom we'd like to collaborate. Then on action number 14, we're going to review the regulations for our professional titles. So those being Chartered Engineer, Associate Engineer, Engineering Technician, and really trying to embed sustainability as a core competence in these professional titles. We're also looking at becoming licensed to award the Chartered Environmentalist title. This is a professional title awarded currently by the Society for the Environment, and that we'd like really to award that to those in Ireland who demonstrate their competence in environmentalism in engineering. And we're also going to look at a European dimension for that work. And then finally in this section, we're going to continue to advocate, campaign, and communicate on sustainable engineering solutions, including our engagement with government. And then the final section of our Learn, Live, Lead, Link framework, we're going to link our sustainability actions to our growing and very important work on inclusion and diversity. And this will help us to build awareness of the need for an inclusive institute where every member feels a sense of belonging, where diversity is embraced, and where we support innovation and engineering excellence. Looking then to our student membership, which numbers approximately 7,000, we're going to bring together the third level institutions for a student-focused event or competition, engaging them on sustainable engineering solutions. We will also then promote interdisciplinary champions, case studies, and networking opportunities. And I think the work there of our regional branches, engineering divisions, and societies will be extremely useful and important. And then the 20th action under our new sustainability plan for 22-23 is that we will collaborate with other professional bodies, with state agencies and organizations in campaigns, training, and communications on sustainability. So just to wrap up then, the progress against our sustainability plan will be communicated on a regular basis to our executive board, who will provide oversight and provide some strategic direction. But those of you here today, I would say that there are loads of opportunities to become involved. You heard about our regions, divisions, and societies, who I think would be instrumental to the delivery of this plan. So please do keep an eye out for their events and consider getting involved, maybe joining one of their committees. You'll find out a lot more then about our sustainability work on our sustainability webpage, including related news and insights, upcoming events, resources, which of course includes today's sustainability plan as a PDF, and then recordings of today's event and many other events, such as those organized by our regions of divisions and societies. So thanks very much for listening, and I'll join the panel discussion in a few moments, and I'd be very happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Richard, and thanks for your ongoing leadership of this agenda within this area in Engineers Ireland. I hope that people see from the plan that this is a very structured plan with very clear actions, very transparent reporting. So we really want this to be a living document that will be evident in all aspects of how we live, how we learn, how we link, and how we lead as an organisation. So we'll now move to the panel discussion, and I'll remind you, we really want this to be very participatory. If you have any questions for our panelists or for Richard, please put them in the Q&A box, and then we'll bring them up when each panelist has had their opening remark. So I want to welcome our panelists, David McHugh, Luke Deasy, and Dr. Magdalena Hajdukiewicz. First up is David McHugh, who's the president of the Association of Consulting Engineers of Ireland. He's a chartered engineer, a director with RPS Ireland, and a past president of the Chartered Institution of Water and Environmental Management. David, the first question for you. ACEI, I know, has adopted a sustainability vision and a commitment to pledge for net zero. Can you tell us about those commitments and what they mean for the engineering profession?
Sure, okay, and thank you, Orla, for that welcome. So I suppose the context for us in ACEI, it came from the fact and the recognition that as engineers, you know, we work on coming up with the solutions to address the climate emergency. It's, you know, in particular in the consulting engineering sector, it's our day job, you could say, you know, whether that's decarbonizing the gas grid or just designing resilient infrastructure. It's what we do. And ACEI member firms, you know, are at that cutting edge of sustainable design. So given that's where we were, the association, and in particular the executive committee through its sustainability committee, wanted to, I suppose, set down a vision for, you know, what we as an association wanted to do and contribute, and as well as that, how we wanted to mobilize our members. We have over 100 member firms that collectively employ over 4,000 people. So, you know, this is a body of engineers and scientists and other technical professionals who've a lot to contribute to this. And I suppose that was the background to our sustainability vision. We developed that and launched that last year at our conference. And there's 4 pillars as well. So, you know, not quite mirroring yours, but I'll just talk you through the 4 pillars of our vision. And the first is advocating. And this was something I was particularly impressed with and quite excited about. The idea that we as an association were empowering our members to go beyond the traditional role of an engineer, of designing the solution, and instead, to understand the implications of climate change, and then to persuade and influence for action in this regard with decision makers. So it has this advocacy role. The second pillar of our vision was about innovating, and this is what we as engineers, as consultants and designers do and have done and continue to do to design the solutions. And part of that is to come up with new solutions, to tackle this problem, I suppose, as you might say, building back wiser. But not just come up with the solutions, but then to share them, to make sure that our industry is not doing things the old way, that we are sharing this knowledge. The third pillar was about implementing, and this was something really specific to consultants, recognizing that we have huge influence, but especially through our clients and their projects. So this was about encouraging our clients to commission and plan, well-conceived and low-carbon projects. And the fourth part then, which mirrors your own, a pillar about leading. And so this is, I suppose, recognizing again that in particular, when it comes to infrastructure and implementing the likes of the National Development Plan, engineers have a quite an influential role. And one of the aspects of this leading pillar was that, we had to get our own house in order before we went out to influence our clients and direct them in terms of the carbon efficiency of their projects. As part of that, we wanted to, as an association, aim for carbon neutrality and encourage all of our member firms to do the same. So that led to the pledge to net zero, which is an initiative, I suppose, that we designed to facilitate our member firms to do exactly that. And so it's I suppose what it was, we looked at the capabilities our member firms had, and many of them were already providing this service as a consulting service to their clients. A lot of our firms would have been smaller firms in the SME sector and may not have had that expertise or that resource. So we've put in place a package of measures really to take our member firms along this journey. And it starts with I will mention, we have partnered with the Pledge to Net Zero campaign. It's a London-based campaign that was, I suppose, spearheaded by the SOCAN, the Society for the Environment, the custodian of the CM designation. So we've partnered with them and in essence adopted the key steps of their process. And so that starts with making a pledge. The member firms, the company makes a pledge to achieve net zero. And then it goes through a process of baselining the carbon emissions and then setting a target for greenhouse gas reduction in line with the Paris Accord, the 1.5 degrees climate change scenario of the Paris Accord. And then once that baselining and target setting is done, our member firms will publicly report their emissions and the progress towards hitting that target. And the one other thing included in this initiative is the need for a piece of research or thought leadership each year, just on the practical steps to delivering that net zero economy. So the ACEI, we launched this last November, just to coincide with COP26 as it was taking place. And just this week, in fact, we had another workshop, a detailed workshop for member firms, just taking them through how to calculate the baseline and set the targets. We had some case studies from member firms who are well progressed on this, and we'll be providing support along this journey for them. So that's just, I hope that's given you a little bit of a flavour for it.
Certainly has. Thanks very much, David. And there's a few questions there that occurred to me, and we'll come back to them when we get into the panel discussion. And again, just to remind others, if you want to pop your own questions in the Q&A box, we'd be very happy to receive them. So next up then is Luke Deasy. Luke is Operations Director at Enerpower, and a chartered engineer with experience in solar, biomass, wind energy and heat pumps. In the last 2 years, he's delivered 17 megawatts of solar and electricity projects, including the solar farm at Eli Lilly in County Cork, which is shown on the cover of our new sustainability plan. So Luke, thanks very much for joining us. Based on your experience in renewable energy projects, what would you highlight as some of the main barriers and some of the solutions to achieving our climate targets? In other words, what do we need to do in this area to build back wiser?
Yeah, thanks very much for that, Orla, and thanks to Engineers Ireland for bringing me in on this panel discussion. Just to start with some of the barriers, I suppose, if we just take solar energy at the minute, like you drive up and down the motorways, you'll see rooftops everywhere, and there's no solar panels on good 95% of them at the minute. One of the major barriers at the minute is the planning process that the country has, I suppose. There's no unanimous planning process for solar panels across all the counties, and the rules vary widely in individual counties. So that would be one barrier that would need to be overcome. Also, like if you're putting PV panels on your roof, you're only changing the aesthetics of the roof, and you're adding to the height of the roof by maybe 50 millimeters. There's no real material change in the structure of the roof. There's no visual change to the location. I quite like the look of them. So I don't put in a planning application that takes 16 weeks when the project itself might only take 5 days. You know, if that was improved or maybe streamlined, that if it was solar, and the meter squared allowance that you could have without the current requirement for planning was increased, that would certainly be one barrier. Another barrier is the development contribution as part of the planning application. It varies widely as well in how the rules are interpreted across the counties. So you could have a small project, and you might want to do your office, or small SMEs want to do, the roof space to get towards net zero, as David was saying. But to pay the development contribution, you might end up adding 2 years to your payback. And it just becomes not financially viable for some companies when they start looking at those kind of items. So there is a threshold of development contribution, and gets applied differently. Some people do it on meter squared, other people do it on kilowatts, other people do it on kilowatt peak, which is actually the DC value rather than the AC value. And then there's a further disconnect then between the planning process and the ESB applications. So a lot of the planning process will state that you're not allowed to export to the grid, whereas the ESB process allows you to export to the grid under certain circumstances. So sometimes when you're trying to progress towards your export, you have to get your planning with no export first, and then reapply, and you could be waiting 6, 7, 8 months before you get your new export license from the ESB, and then you have to submit back to the planning to state you're changing the material construction to allow for export. So there's lots of different intricacies there in that process on its own, without getting into the likes of additional costs for glint and glare, even in counties that you're nowhere near an airport or a flight pad. It's again another cost which on a small system could add 12 or 18 months worth of payback onto the system, and you're still not allowed exports. So there's some serious barriers there that could be overcome if there was some working groups set up and a steering committee maybe to look at the process countrywide rather than just on an individual county by county basis. So that's certainly one. Another one that we see is the likes of your grid connections. So the ESB have done a great job in the last 5-6 months in relation to the grid connection process, and they have put new procedures in place since the new year that should speed up, and they've also rolled out a trial in relation to export under the NC7 applications for smaller projects up to 50 kilowatts. But the process takes a long time, whereas if you apply for a zero export license, you can get through very quickly. So it means then that you need to put additional control and protection with your system to stop you exporting onto the grid, even though at times a lot of companies might not be working on a Sunday or a Saturday where we would have excess that we could be spilling out onto the grid to help the renewables on the grid and to help the energy issue that we're having. So that is certainly something that I know the ESB are working on at the minute with EirGrid and the CRU, but it's just another item that is a barrier at the minute that could certainly be looked at. And I don't think leaving a certain level of export onto the grid is a bad thing. And the rules are constantly changing and improving. And as I said, they've just rolled out some new rules after Christmas for small systems, which will help, but that comes with a lengthier process to get it actually completed. And then we have the issue of the larger projects like Eli Lilly behind us there, where it's not exporting to the grid at all. It's fully consumed on site, but EirGrids still require controllability, even though the electricity can never actually go to the grid, which adds another massive expense and to the clients, which is something that if it isn't exporting to the grid, maybe they could relook at the requirement for the controllability from their side, because they have absolutely no use of the electricity due to the grid protection that's in place. It won't allow export. So having the extra controllability doesn't aid anybody. One of the other barriers is, I suppose, education. There's a lot of people out there thinking solar here in Ireland that it doesn't work. Now it's changing over the last 5 or 6 years. I've seen it change, and that site there behind me is a testament to that. It's the first solar farm here in Ireland, and completed in July last year. But and there'll be plenty more this year, luckily enough. But it has been a slow uptake. And a lot of people will say, well, solar won't work in Ireland. You know, it rains half the year or 3/4 of the year, depending on where you are in the country. But solar does work here in Ireland, and in Eli Lilly in particular, it's working quite well. And we have a presentation on Wednesday for Engineers Week in relation to that, with Engineers Ireland. It does work. It'll work for your house. It'll work for your business. So education on the solar may be starting sooner in schools or having more of it in colleges, and even just a wider brief for companies out there to say it does work, and it can help your renewable energy targets as well as your pocket with the rising energy prices that are out there at the minute. It's certainly something that people should be looking at, even if they think it won't work. Ask the question, and we can model it and data it and give you the information, and you can make an informed decision rather than just writing it off straight away. So they will kind of be the 3 barriers and solutions that I would say are out there at the minute, in my opinion anyway.
Great, thanks, Luke. Again, we'll lots to discuss at the end of the presentations now. Next up then is Dr. Magdalena Hajdukiewicz, who's a lecturer in energy systems at NUI Galway. She's a chartered engineer. She's the current chairperson of Engineers Ireland West Region and a member of the Council of Engineers Ireland. Her personal research focuses on the sustainability of the built environment, including energy efficient buildings. Magda, thank you very much, first of all, for your contributions to the sustainability plan that we've just heard outlined by Richard, and also for your committee's leading role in advocating engineering and sustainability. From your perspective in higher education, obviously that's also my own sector, what role will engineering education play in building back wiser?
Thank you very much, Orla, and I welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. Yes, we all know that engineers play a significant role in shaping the world around us through their engineering education, application of knowledge, leadership, communication skills, and ethical practice. Engineers are specialists who solve problems, but they're also integrators who operate and manage across boundaries and with different stakeholders. They're change agents who provide creativity, initiative, innovation, and leadership. So considering the impact of engineering achievements to date, one could argue that engineering has had one of the biggest influences on the climate crisis, but also the biggest opportunity to help transition to a more resilient society. So from my work at NUI Galway and within Engineers Ireland, I clearly see that education and collaborative partnerships are central to the implementation of sustainable development. Alongside traditional learning outcomes, The core competencies required for future engineers to achieve SDGs would include envisioning, critical thinking and reflection, systemic thinking, building partnerships, and participation in decision-making. So ensuring engineers build back wiser and obtain these relevant competencies would be one step forward to a more sustainable future. Apologies, that's just the window behind me closing. So the third level institutions in Ireland are already making a great progress on embedding sustainability agenda. And as an example, I want to talk a little bit about NUI Galway, who developed its sustainability strategy following extensive engagement with the campus community through the Community and University Sustainability Partnership. This partnership is a multidisciplinary team of 30 staff and students who work together with the common aim of establishing the university as a leading institution or leading institutional model for sustainability. And our framework also follows the kind of similar model as Engineers Ireland, and it's the Learn, Live, Lead model. And in terms of some high-level achievements in the last 2 years, we have received STARS Gold rating, which is the most comprehensive sustainability assessment method for universities. And NUI Galway is one of 137 third-level institutions globally with that gold rating. Our president signed the SDG Accord, which means, which commits to sharing best practice internationally. We are a member of ENLIGHT, which is the European University Network to promote equitable quality of life, sustainability, and global engagement. We have Biodiversity Action Plan, and we are a champion of Galway Park City with great student involvement. Students really lead the way at NUI Galway in embedding sustainability principles in everything we do. NUI Galway are currently mapping sustainable development goals against all modules in the university, and this has already been done for engineering. And also a kind of a specific example, which I think is worth mentioning, is engineering at NUI Galway facilitating over 300 community engaged building engineering projects. So those projects are framed by a research orientation, commitments to civic engagement, and building university community partnerships. This ensures that community users can provide real learning problems and context for students and benefit from the results of those projects. Students recognize the long-term value of engaging with our community partners. They understand their future role as engineers in the communities. They reinforce the idea that their work can respond directly to real needs in the community, and that all supports promoting the sustainability agenda at the same time. And just to mention the West region that was mentioned before as well in Orla, in your presentation, and Richard as well. So over the years, the West region committee have been very active in promoting sustainability agenda. We initiated the sustainability grand tour in 2021 in response to the president's call for projects to address sustainability, and also supported the overall tour and leading 5 of the 19 webinars. The West region worked with the Southeast region to deliver the Protecting Biodiversity issues paper, which originated from the Sustainability Grand Tour, and it's also mentioned in Richard's presentation. And following this, the Engineers Ireland CPD team in Clyde Road have developed a new environmental training course for engineers based on the findings from the biodiversity paper. So, anything in engineering, we need our technical skills, but the collaboration, communication, and sharing of knowledge and working in partnerships are extremely important. And we have to ensure that future engineers have those skills and capabilities in order to tackle the current and the future challenges.
Great, thanks very much, Magda. So some great contributions there, great, lines for questions and for thoughts. So thank you very much for all of those. And we've got some questions coming in now in the Q&A. Again, I encourage those in attendance to put in their own questions there so that we can address them now. A few of the questions are about communications. So, where there are some difficult technical concepts that underlie an area like, hydrogen or whatever, how do we communicate them to a general audience and to policymakers, and also then communications with communities maybe who are affected by things like renewables and how one establishes a productive dialogue in those areas. So would anybody like to kick this one off?
I'd love to jump in if I may.
Please do, David.
It's something that I feel very strongly about. Communication is a great example of a skill that I think is not a core part of our training as engineers. And, whether we pick it up or not is somewhat ad hoc, and yet it's absolutely critical. So, if I think back to our role as leading, engineers have a role to lead. And it was really interesting to see the data you had from your survey about the ethical responsibility. So, the public expects it of us, and we expect it of ourselves. We have a role to lead, and that means influencing, and in particular influencing the public, because the change we need, the scale of change we need, will need public support and public demand, and we need to find ways to communicate with the public, and we need to upskill ourselves to do that, and stretch ourselves beyond the traditional areas of our comfort zone, so and I've done this over the past couple of years, right? It means we have to become storytellers, and I can tell you I'm not a natural storyteller, but if we want to engage people in this topic, it's not going to be the hard cold facts. You have to engage their hearts first, and that'll help mobilize them. And so it's about us stretching ourselves, right? And I'm sure that goes right back to the the educational system. And I've seen this in our local university here in Cork. Huge focus on communication at undergrad level and the postgrads, and you can see that coming out. Students who have much more confidence getting up and speaking and presenting than I would have as an undergrad, and then that needs to be part of our career development for all of us.
And David, on communication, and you talked earlier about your clients or your members having to deal with clients ultimately on projects. How does one of your members respond if a client does not share the commitment to sustainability?
Yeah, it is a challenge, right? So would you believe at the moment we're having a conversation within ACEI about our own code of ethics, about that very obligation on us. So there is an obligation on us, and we want to push that onto our clients. Our clients, there's an educational point and an influencing point, and our clients don't always see that. Now, look, there are some projects that aren't as sustainable as we'd like, but there's some projects required. As we transition to a net zero economy, we're still going to be building gas-fired power stations and so on. We're going to be building carbon-powered projects that are necessary for part of the transition, and that's got to be part of it. But it can't stop us from that I suppose endless and relentless task of looking to influence our clients.
Thanks very much, David. Magda, I see you've got your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to add to very valid point made by David. I just want to add to the communication piece, also the public consultation and engaging with the public through very effective public participation. So involving the public, involving the end user in the process, maybe not only consulting them, but also involving them and making them part of that decision making. Because if we don't do that, we can see the outcomes that can be very challenging in terms of we have past examples of the big wind farm projects. Recently, we had an example of the Salt Hill Cycleway in Galway. So if we don't involve the end users in the solutions, in the decision making effectively, we will encounter problems.
Thanks, Magda. Luke, I was going to go straight to you on that, and I see you've got your hand up. So please share your thoughts.
Yeah, I'll mirror what Magda said. There used to be this this theory that you don't try and do your projects and don't involve the communities, I suppose, and try and get them over the line and get planning and all that kind of good stuff, and then proceed with the construction. It doesn't really work, I suppose. Everyone's, you know, Ireland is a highly educated society as a whole, or on the whole. People know what's happening in their local areas. That the solar farm behind you isn't called the Enerpower solar farm. It's not called the Eli Lilly solar farm. It's called the Dundero solar farm, because the GAA club, which is literally just out of view, is the Dundero GAA Kinsale GAA club. We did public engagements 2 years before we ever broke ground on that project, before we ever submitted planning. You know, we had 3D models to show what the glint and glare would be like every hour of the day to make sure it wasn't impacting anyone's homes to any great extent. I know a lot of the airgrid and the ESB for the offshore wind farms that they're talking about now. There's massive public engagement going on. And I think it is all down to engaging with the public. Don't try and hide away or shy away or try and do things behind closed doors. Those days are gone, you know. There's everything needs to be out in the public eye. The media is so on top of, they have the finger on the pulse the whole time. The project isn't going to happen in the background without anyone noticing. So it's easier to bring people in up front, communicate to them. And there's always a simple way of communicating a complex idea. As I can't remember who said it, but if you can't communicate it simply to someone, then you mightn't understand it fully yourself. So, you know, you need to be able to communicate it down to non-engineers to explain, look, this is what's going on in the field, or this is where the wind turbines come in. These are the amount of trucks. This is how much is going to be bringing in wind turbine blades, how they go up, and just explain it through it. But there's also benefits. A lot of these renewable energy projects for the communities have community development contributions. As I said earlier, on small projects, while they might be prohibitive for very small projects, but for large scale wind farms and offshore, they do inject a massive amount of community funding into the local communities that they're installed in. And it's about engaging with the community, setting up that fund, setting up that partnership, and seeing what's involved in it and the benefits to the community, not just that there's going to be 20 or 30 turbines up on the hill over in the corner and they're going to be looking ugly. There's a benefit to the economy, there's a benefit to the country, there's a benefit to renewable energy prices, which is going to hit everybody in the pocket, not just the community. We're helping the country towards zero carbon, and there's also a benefit to the very local community in relation to those funds and how they can help. I know most wind farms work with GA an awful lot. Like they would put AEDs into local communities as well as funds, and there would be open days where they bring them out and they walk them around and explain the technology afterwards, or have local schools come up as education days. We have a 2050 target, not just a 2030 target. There's people that aren't even in education now, which will play a massive role in delivering that 2050 target. And if we don't involve the communities and don't have that level of communication right through from non-engineers, school and college, all the way up to the local farmers, local communities, post ladies and men that are out there and engage everybody in it. The projects, they're just not worth doing because they're everyone's projects, not just the developer or the engineering company that's installing them.
Thanks very much, Luke. Richard, there are a couple of questions about Engineers Ireland and about how are the 4 Ls, the framework, how that might dovetail, say, with the government plans. Anything you want to say about that?
Yes, absolutely. So you'll see in the sustainability plan, in a few instances, we refer to engaging with government. And of course, within Engineers Ireland, our work in advocacy and policy is one of our core functions. So we have actually inputted into the climate action plan on a few occasions. For example, our Energy, Environment, Climate Action Division prepared a really comprehensive submission. I think that ran to over 30 pages. And in fact, the chair of that division has appeared at Oireachtas committees on climate also. So we have, I think, influenced that plan, and we are very much committed as both an organisation and the engineering profession, I think in general, in terms of assisting the achievement of those quite ambitious targets and the various projects. So if you take some of the sectors, like I know today we've spoken about the electricity generation sector, but if you look at transport or heating, and I know there was a question also about the SCAI recent heat study, which I presume is the National Heat Study, all of those sectors will require engineering expertise, more engineers in order to deliver those projects, and really quite a vibrant construction sector, manufacturing sectors and others if we are to achieve those targets. So I do think some of the actions that we have in the sustainability plan in areas like embedding sustainability into engineering education so that the new graduates, of which again we need more of, are equipped with those skills, but also then leading on sustainability in terms of continuing to advocate with government and to communicate the need for engineering and sustainability.
Thanks very much, Richard. Now, unfortunately, we're almost at time, although there's lots of great questions remaining. So I'll just have to give our panelists the opportunity to make one final brief statement, maybe about your thoughts, having heard the discussion here today, and your thoughts on how we indeed can build back wiser. So David, I'll start off with you.
Great, thank you. And look, I mean, the parting thought for me is that, you know, as engineers and environmentalists, we need to step up and provide leadership. And, you know, that's goes beyond the technical sphere. We need to start shaping the policy response. And as Magda mentioned, we need to be the change agents to make this happen.
Thanks, David. Luke?
Yeah, I suppose just from my side to everybody out there, don't be afraid of renewable technologies. It's not new. It's been around for a long time. It's very advanced in compared to what it was 20 years ago. It's something that everyone should be looking at and integrating, and that's all the way from primary school through college, industry and beyond. The technical knowledge is here within Ireland. We don't need to go abroad. We don't need to be trying to find offshore wind companies that are working in Denmark or Australia. The technology is here, the expertise are here, and that's down to our education. We just need to take that one step further to help achieve our country's goals.
Great. Thanks, Luke. Again, very clear, very succinct. Thank you for that. Magda?
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to emphasize the need for collaboration from the engineering point of view, but collaboration with multidisciplinary teams, with scientists, social scientists, with end users, people who are going to be using the technologies, people who are living their lives in our cities and in our communities. But also when collaborating, this has to be based on the solid scientific evidence. You can't have the misinformation. I could see that there is a comment there as well. In terms of the promoting sustainability agenda, we need to base this on the science. We can't have misinformation, just to make sure that the message is coming through to all the stakeholders.
Great, thanks, Magda. And Richard?
Yeah, really, I would just call on all Engineers Ireland members to get involved in this area. As I mentioned, there are plenty of opportunities, whether that's through our regions, divisions and societies, all of whom are really getting behind this area. Whether that you might organise an event, join a committee, or of course with Engineers Week coming up, you may consider visiting a school or organising an event in your company related to sustainability.
Brilliant, thanks, Richard, and thanks very much to all our panelists, and thanks to all of you who've joined us this lunchtime. Before I close up now, I do just want to bring up the point that Richard just raised, that STEPS Engineers Week, which is our nationwide celebration of engineering in Ireland, as you know, starts tomorrow, the 5th of March, and it runs through to next Friday. So during the week, we're going to be celebrating engineering in many, many different ways all across Ireland. The target audience in particular is primary and secondary school children. And the main aim of the week is to promote engineering and to show the importance of the profession to children in Ireland. So if you want to be part of this, if you can come up with ways to promote the importance of engineering to children of primary and secondary age, please do get involved. This might include engineers or organisations, colleges, libraries, families, teachers, those working in STEM, in science communications, local authorities, industries of all engineering flavours. So if you want more information on how to get involved, visit engineersireland.ie/schools. So finally, once again, thank you for attending today's event. The slides and the recording will be emailed to all attendees, and you'll find the sustainability plan on our website. And finally, wish you a very happy World Engineering Day for Sustainable Development. Thanks again. Bye-bye.